So, yeah, shopping in Japan is a little different. I guess it's sort of like big city shopping in the US, but I'm not used to it that much living in Coeur d'Alene. Starbucks is really popular in Japan now, as are a lot of other coffee shops. Generally speaking, I think shopping here is very, very fashionable. Nagasaki people compare it to Tokyo and say that they are actually not so fashionable, but in fact, compared to a lot of places in the world, I think Nagasaki looks pretty good in terms of the way they shop and the choices that they have and so on. This is sort of a typical little drugstore type of place where you buy things like soap and toothpaste and stuff like that. A bit on the cluttered side, I'd say. And Seiyu is it's sort of a grocery store. This is where I would buy, you know, foods for home and stuff. The cakes that are offered are really amazing in terms of how delicious they are and how beautiful they are. Japan is a place where you can find some really nice things like this that are not cheap. Let's take a look at prices. Let's see, about $3 a piece. Not cheap, but they really are delicious and well presented. This type of place is spotlessly clean and has excellent service and really, really delicious foods. There's some other products that they have. So we have another bakery, a lot of good stuff here. For some reason, the Japanese have a good sense of French and German breads. Russian also. I would be hard-pressed to find bread like this practically anywhere in the US. At least the way I look at it. There's also a Tully's Coffee. Like I say, coffee is really popular now in Japan. On this floor, clothes and shoes and things for younger people can be found. Japanese like bags. Sounds so generalizing, but it's true that most people have a really nice bag or a collection of nice bags. You see them a lot. Clothing also is pretty fashionable in Japan, particularly on weekends or weekend nights. You see people go out and they look really, really good. Interestingly, Tommy Hilfiger and certain brands that I feel like are not quite still in fashion in the US are sometimes in fashion in Japan, and then other things feels like Japan is kind of leading the way in certain things. Like certain styles I see just emerging in the U.S. are already well utilized in Japan. So it's kind of interesting how that works. Japanese seem to follow European trends slightly ahead of the US, I think, as far as I can tell. I could be wrong about that. I'm not a fashion guy very much. Vans are pretty popular here, just like they are in the US. But the Japanese tend to like retro shoes. There are a lot of brands that you'll find, like New Balance is pretty popular now. I've noticed some of the Nike shoes that I saw back in the 1970s and 80s are available in Japan in a way that I don't see them in the US. I'll try to find some examples of that. But the exact shoes that I used to wear when I was in middle school and in high school are available in Japan now. So, hats. I need to get a hat actually. Getting a haircut today, so kids. It's kind of a cool shop. Micah might like it. So I'm in a bookstore that I often come to for textbooks and things like that. I don't know, Japan is kind of a consumer's paradise. It's really well organized, and there's a lot of choice. It's amazing how much stuff you can find here. I don't know, it just seems like more volume of stuff to buy if you like manga or novels or whatever. It just seems like there's a lot available. Whereas like where I shop back in the US, I don't know if I can really compare. Like where would one go to find this many this many choices in comic books, for example, or whatever these are. I don't read this kind myself, but there's a lot of stuff here. I go over to this section over here where I can find English books right over here. This is where I get my texts for supplementing my classes at school. Quite a few. This is a kind that I used to use when I was here last, and surprisingly they still exist. I just bought a set of these recently. It's an old English conversation book that works pretty well for me, called Side by Side, grammar based and pretty simple to use for repeating and things like that. Some of the other books that I used to use are not here anymore though, so I'm going to need to find a good idioms book and a good vocabulary book. So we'll see what happens. Moving on through. Head out and get something to eat.